Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to the first episode of the Properteers Podcast after Ramadan. I'm delighted to welcome our guest speaker, Areeb Siddiqui from Kestrl. Welcome, my brother.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for having me. Really good to be here.
It's a pleasure. Thank you very much for taking the time
No
coming
worries.
here. How was your Ramadan? How did it go?
Alhamdulillah, it was probably the busiest Ramadan I ever remember having. That now that you're running a Muslim-based startup, Ramadan is not just for yourself. It suddenly becomes a great business marketing type opportunity, as I'm sure you guys can attest to. So I think we bit off a bit more than we could chew with our marketing campaigns. But Alhamdulillah, it was really, really good. A bit different, but still very beneficial.
In fact, that's actually quite intriguing that you should say that, because I've noticed that. I've noticed people ramping it up during
Yeah.
Ramadan. And actually, it's quite challenging the demands of Ramadan
Yeah.
and the requirements of Ramadan to the requirements of business. How did you find that balancing act?
It was rough, right? I'll be honest, because obviously you have your own things, your own personal goals within Ramadan. You want to read a certain number of pages of the Quran, and you want to ideally finish it. You want to go for Tarawih as often as possible, restrictions permitting. You want to do all these kinds of things, but then when you're running an Islamic business, it's like, okay, here's a key opportunity where people are suddenly more deen focused than they maybe are in other times of the year. We want to help them achieve their goals in line with their religious values. There's an opportunity here. So, we ran a campaign with National Zakat Foundation. You could calculate your zakat and donate it within our app. And mainly people do that within Ramadan. So we were like doing as many events with them as possible, pushing content, doing posts like how much zakat would Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk have to pay it was a lot. So trying to do this stuff every day and to get around that community aspect of Ramadan. But yeah, it was just exhausting by the end of it, to be honest. By the last 10 days, I was just finished, basically.
I can imagine, bro, and I don't envy you for that.
But yeah, alhamdulillah, I think we learned a lot of lessons from it. Yeah.
Perfect. All right, before we get into Kestrel,
Yeah.
I'm interested a little bit about you. So tell me your story. What's your story in a nutshell?
My story without Kestrel. It's been a long time since someone asked me that. So my name's Areeb. I'm 29 years old, British Pakistani. I went to school northeast, technically in Essex, but I like to say North London. Did my undergraduate in physics at University College London, UCL, and then went straight into the city. It was something that I always thought I was going to do, just because, when you're working around London, living around London, that's the main way people make a living, working in finance in some way. Alhamdulillah, I got into a big firm called Deloitte, one of the big four consulting and auditing firms. I was working in consulting, mainly in risk and regulation, so helping big banks and asset and wealth managers deal with regulations and come up with strategies to get around certain things. So that was interesting. Did a graduate scheme for 3 years there, and then decided to strike out and go work for a tiny little consultancy, less than 100 people, called Alpha, which was amazing. A lot of responsibility, learned a lot doing that, just focusing on asset and wealth management. And that's where my eyes were open to fintech a lot more, because there were a lot of new up and coming investment fintech related things like Nutmeg, which are relatively well known now as a robo-advice firm. But all of these robo-advisory firms, people where you could do automatic investing, this was all up and coming at that time. So, UBS were trying to do their one, Investec were trying to do theirs. So it was like a really cool thing to see starting to develop. And of course, as we know now, a lot of them failed, and I got to see why that happened. And it was just during that time, it was actually Ramadan. I think it was Ramadan 2017, where I was just being flown around like to the Netherlands, to Scotland, and I just thought, this is ridiculous, because my Ramadan has just been completely consumed by work. I wasn't able to do anything that I wanted to do, right? I was trying to do Taraweehs in Edinburgh, where the fasts were like 20 hours a day, and it's crazy. Like I've got so much respect for the Scottish brothers and sisters, because their Ramadans in that summer were ridiculous. So at that point I was like, I just don't know if this is what I want to do, and I need to do something else. So on a whim, I started applying for MBAs. I'd heard a lot about them. I applied to 3 schools and alhamdulillah got in, and chose to go to Cambridge. So I went to Cambridge Business School, took a year out just to focus on myself. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And that's where, alhamdulillah, I met my co-founder and we came up with this idea to help Muslims achieve their financial goals without compromise. And that's where Kestrel was born. But I had no entrepreneurial ambition whatsoever until suddenly this idea came along and we felt the need to maybe do something about it, or even a responsibility. It's a weird thing. So, whilst we was testing the idea, getting validation, I'd gotten a job at a big consultancy, PwC. So I was working there for a few months, and then alhamdulillah we managed to raise enough capital that we could go full time on the project. So we did that, we built a tech team, and the rest is history. But that was me until Kestrel. Yeah.
Interesting, fascinating, in fact. And you must have been one of the youngest guys on your MBA program, because I did my MBA at the age of 24 and finished at the age of 25, and I was like one of the babies on the program.
Yeah, I was one of the younger ones. I think you would have been, tiny. In the UK and Europe, people tend to do it a lot older. I think average age was like 32, early 30s, and we had people, really cool people in their, early 50s who were on it as well. I was like, I think 25, 26 when I started the MBA, but alhamdulillah, you learn a lot around people like that, and also it really knocks you down a peg, because you go in there thinking you know everything, and then you meet all these people who are so worldly and have traveled and lived all over the world and held really high positions, who you're just constantly learning from.
Big stuff.
It was a real eye opener. Alhamdulillah. Probably it's weird to say and it's really cheesy, but genuinely one of the best years of my life was spent doing that MBA, because it genuinely changed who I was as a person.
Same here, man. For me, my MBA was a turning point.
Yeah.
For me, it rubbing shoulders with world-class talent. Yeah, it broadens you up. And I remember starting the program, almost like with my head down, trying to hide myself.
Oh yeah.
Because I didn't feel good enough at the time.
Yeah.
But by the end of the program, when people looked to turn to me for my view on things, and I grew a lot in that 1 year. And
you built an impression.
Yeah, my horizon, my opportunities grew like that. People still talk about MBAs, whether it's like whether you should do it or not.
Yeah. Yeah.
For me, it's an absolute no-brainer to be able to do it in the right place. Like you doing your one at Cambridge, it makes a remarkable difference in the trajectory of where someone can end up.
I mean, if the question is should you do an MBA or not, I always say it really depends. Because like everyone says, people typically do an MBA for 3 reasons. You want to get a promotion, you want to move industry, or you want to move country. One of those 3 things typically. But I think genuinely the main reason people should consider doing an MBA, if you're considering it, is the network that you get from it is really the main value. So you shouldn't just do it from anywhere. It should be like a place where these people who you are studying with are ideally going to go on to like lead big businesses all over the country, all over the world. So that's the network you want to maintain over the next 10 to 20 years. That's the main value of doing it. Do you need it to start a business? I absolutely don't think so, because everything I learned on the MBA, I don't know if it's the same for you, but you can just learn online for free. And I learned more in 3 months of running a business than I did in the entire year of doing an MBA. So, yeah.
All right, talking about business, we're going to talk about Kestrel now, right? So, let's start with the name. What's with the name, Kestrel, right? Because I don't know if those of you are like so old enough to remember, but Kestrel reminds me of Kestrel GTX and the engine oil, right?
Yeah. So
what's with the name, bro?
A Kestrel is it's the name of a bird. It's a little falcon. And I'll tell you the business reason, which you'll see on our website, and I'll tell you the real reason after that why we called it Kestrel. So the business reason is that Kestrel, as an idea, we want to basically democratize personal finance for the masses, to make it easy for Muslims to achieve their financial goals without feeling like, oh God, I've got to go with this interest-based thing because there's no other option for me, right? Or I can't look at halal investment because it cuts out all of the viable options for me. So we want to democratize access to personal finance, but also in terms of knowledge, right, of personal finance, learning about it. We want to really, really help Muslims in the personal finance sense, and also the Islamic finance. So what has that got to do with Kestrels? Well, there's an old English saying called "a Kestrel for a knave," popularized by a book or a movie called Kes in the 60s, about a young boy in Yorkshire who trains a little falcon to hunt, and it helps him with his development at school. And the expression "a Kestrel for a knave" was because in Old England, when people used falconry, you'd use birds to hunt. Different birds were reserved for different classes of people. Eagles were reserved for kings and emperors. Falcons were reserved for like lords, and a kestrel, it's literally very small. It's probably like as big as this bottle, right? It's tiny. It can't really catch anything more than like a mouse or a sparrow. They were reserved for the lowest of the low, the knaves or the peasants, right? So our idea was that our business, similar to that small bird, is available to anyone. You don't have to be really rich, right? It's something which is for everyone, democratizing personal finance. So that's the long-winded business answer as to why we did it. The real reason is because there is a bank called Starling Bank, which is named after a bird, and kestrels eat starlings. And it was just a joke because we couldn't think of a better name when we were coming up with this, and it just stuck. So that was the reason. But yeah, that's why it's called Kestrel.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, I mean, look, we can get past the name bit because quite often, actually, businesses are named on a whim or for sentimental reasons or given no thought at all. But what really matters is the substance, or products and services bringing value to the market.
Absolutely.
And ideally, changing people's lives, right? So this is the hard bit for you, right? Because I need selling on this, bro.
Yeah.
The whole space of fintech and Islamic Fintech, I'm not convinced. Maybe because I'm a property guy.
Yeah. You want tangible assets.
Tangibles, bricks and mortar, and tangible rental income and growth in property prices and property typically outliving the lifetime of its owner. Maybe it's because of that, but I'm looking at HSBC Amana. I'm looking at Al Rayyan. You might have got that email a few days ago.
They're closing down. Yeah, their East London branch.
But that's, I suppose you can call that banking, yeah?
Yeah.
But it's the same thing for me. Why? Because at the end of the day, they're closing down because they weren't profitable. Yeah? And I'm not yet convinced that Islamic Fintech is going to be profitable enough for it to survive, for it to be able to get through the infancy stage it needs to get through for it to grow.
Absolutely. And look, there's plenty of use cases from the non-Islamic fintech, just fintech in general, of people who went bust, right? Like I said, when I was consulting in this space, I saw a lot of robo-advisors go out, right? Investec tried to launch their own robo-advisory unit. So for people who don't know, robo-advisors, things like Wahid Invest, you might have heard of, they're people who make it easy to invest in certain portfolios, right? Collections of stocks and shares. Investec tried it and didn't work because it wasn't profitable, right? UBS tried it, wasn't profitable, they had to shut it down. Nutmeg tried it, weren't profitable, still not profitable to this day, and they've changed to a more human-based model. Wasn't working for them, right? The same was for a number of digital banks. It's not working for Monzo, they're still not profitable, but things are starting to change. Starling has made a profit. They broke even, right? And they're expecting to continue. They broke even or
they made profit?
They broke even, and now they're expecting to be profitable by the end of this year, is what Anne Boden, their CEO, is stating. Revolut going down the same thread. I believe they were like a couple of months after Starling breaking even, and it's because they changed their tactic, right? So Starling originally was the bank for everyone. They were focusing on everyone, but they found it was much more profitable to focus on businesses, business banking, and that's really worked for them. There's people in this room using Starling as a business bank account, and they are very good.
How does he know?
We had a chat beforehand. So Starling is doing very well. Revolut really honed in on the investment side of things, especially the whole kind of speculative nature of crypto and how popular that's been amongst young men in particular, right? Allowing you to do that through their premium model. And that really worked for Revolut. So there are people who are finding things that are working and they're pulling through. Monzo, jury is still out. You know, they've been in a bit of flux. Their CEO had to step down, still not there, but we're learning a lot of lessons from them. What does that mean for the Islamic fintechs? Well, with Kestrel, we feel very much we're learning from the other fintechs that were out there. We saw what worked and what didn't work. And we're not about these sort of free models that were known as blitz scaling in the past, if you're familiar with that term. So Monzo was able to grow its user base massively at the beginning, and everyone remembers their bright pink coral cards, which was like this amazing way of signifying that I am a Monzo user, I am different, I'm standing out, you know, this whole identity thing, which on the face of it sounds like it should work for Muslims as well, right? Now everyone touted that Monzo was growing through organic growth and they weren't spending anything on marketing, right? And that's how they would be acquiring customers and eventually pushing them to a profitable model. But in reality, those debit cards, when you look at the numbers, and we had to, that debit card was so expensive in order to run. It's the main reason that, you know, it's so hard for a debit card based fintech company to break even, because of the cost involved in running that and giving that out to everyone for free. So the main thing that we learned with Kestrel is really identifying where the value drivers are with the product base. And initially, when we did our first nationwide survey of Muslim banking habits, we thought debit cards were the way to go. But as we spoke to more and more users and we started asking them more general questions around the pain points that they were experiencing, we found that the debit card wasn't actually solving a real problem for people. It was more nice to have, like the cherry on the cake. The real problem that people experience, the real pain points, are how do I make money and grow my wealth in a halal manner without compromising that? That can either be saving that and putting that money into something that's not just a current account that's getting eroded away by inflation, so a halal savings account in some way, but then actually growing that money through various investment channels, knowing what is good in terms of investment, because the majority of people are not just Muslims, but in general, they are financially illiterate when it comes to investing, knowing what asset classes are good, and things in general. And then for Muslims, there is a second element there as to, is this halal or haram for me? So for Muslims, it's kind of like a double whammy. So with us at Kestrel, there's various different routes to profitability that we're pursuing, but we're not focusing on just one. But our aim is to help Muslims achieve their financial goals without compromise, and we want to do that through helping them the entire personal finance journey, through budgeting, through saving, and through investing in those three sorts of channels. And there's various things within there we can go into. I don't know if that's getting anywhere to convincing you, but I think my point is that we recognize it's hard and we're trying out a bunch of different things.
Yeah, I need more convincing.
That's fine.
I need more convincing, but we'll probe a little bit more.
Yeah.
And maybe I can help.
Yeah, sure.
Because, well, yeah, something that we've learned over the years, you know. Look, one of the things I learned at my MBA was business is the act of arbitrage. And arbitrage is you buy low and you sell high and you make profit. The whole purpose of business is to make profit. And alhamdulillah, we're at a stage now, me and my founding partners, in what we're doing, where we've reached that point in our lives where, it's not about wasting time. If we're going to do business, we have to make profit, we have to make money. And we have to make money, not for us, not just for ourselves, but for people around us, for it to be sustainable.
Yep.
We have to create win-win, multiple win-win scenarios, cutting deals every day, creating win-win scenario. But bottom line is that we have to create value, we have to create profit for everyone to enjoy. If everyone enjoys profit, everyone remains interested, and the thing can continue to grow. Where I see the main challenge in fintech, and some challenges in fintech and Islamic fintech, is that, like for example, in my earlier entrepreneurial years, and when I even hit rock bottom, for example, and everyone has to go through that, by the way.
Yeah.
It's maybe there's the odd that won't, right? Is not being able to control my costs. Yeah, and I didn't get it at that time. I didn't get it because you do it in the hope of generating revenue to cover your costs and then hit break even and profit. And this is where I see challenge in red tape, in bureaucracy, in FCA, who are basically sucking a lot of money out of the piece before you even get into the to the revenue part. So, what's the plan? Well, you know, how robust is your model, or the Islamic Fintech model as a whole? Because I'm interested. I want it to succeed. We want it to succeed because we want to eventually. I say eventually. We want to plug in now, actually. But eventually, as you know, organisations like yourselves will inshallah grow and prosper. We want to plug in with what we're doing, and we'll get to that bit in a minute. But I need to get past the bit where it's going to survive and it's going to grow, and costs can be controlled to the point where there's an intersection with revenue, and then get into the profit territory. So what's the plan?
I think the thing with fintechs compared to, you know, more traditional businesses are that typically there's a huge outlay of capital at the beginning to set something up, to acquire customers and build up that cost base, because you're playing catch up amongst financial institutions that have been around for hundreds of years sometimes, right? And that requires quite a large outlay of capital, which is why to get there we had to fundraise and use, you know, other people's money to get there. You know, when you're using other people's money, believe me, you've got a lot of people breathing down your neck to see that you are keeping the costs under control, because you got a limited runway, right? And as we've grown as a company, you know, alhamdulillah, we started off with 2 people, now we're 16 people, right, across 3 countries. So that's something which we do need to be careful of the whole time. In terms of actually coming up with revenue, right, we learn lessons. Monzo was giving everyone debit cards for free, right? The main lesson that we learned is, in terms of what we give people for free, we need to really start ascribing the value that people want to put on our services and charging them for that, right? So, okay, we talked to our customers and they found that, hey, I would love something which allowed me to put my goals into a timeline, actually ring fence money into these savings pots, right? Determine whether I can put those with an Islamic bank or invest them into, you know, open up a pensions pot or open up some kind of a halal portfolio, right? And for you to take that off my hands and do that, I'm willing to pay you a monthly fee, as opposed to us just doing that for free, which was the fintech model before, right? So charging people a monthly subscription for that, recurring revenue is the way forward. And then it's a question of scalability once you've proven the model and getting that recurring revenue through the door. We're still in the phase where we are proving that. I mean, you can download Kestrel for free today. Right now, we're a budgeting tool, so we use something called open banking, a license, you know, provided by the FCA, where you can plug in multiple banks into us, and we'll create an automatic budget for you, right? So based on your historic spending and your income, we'll see how much you should be saving every single month and tell you that, and you get a full breakdown of your finances across multiple things. We do that for free right now because it's pretty cheap actually doing that at the moment. But future things that we're doing, inshallah, this summer, next week, well, maybe by the time this goes out, we'll have our investment marketplace, where still that's free to the customer, but we charge the marketplace providers who are on that commissions, you know, whether we are selling portions of property or small businesses or allowing you to invest in gold or funds, you know, we'll inshallah be making a revenue from that. But then future things like I described, those savings pots, the debit cards, if people really want that, we won't provide that to you unless someone is paying that, right? And to find that number, as you know, in marketing, the whole kind of conjoint analysis thing, ascribing different values to different service levels, that is something that we need to test, and we are testing with users to figure out the right thing. So, you know, it is a journey. I don't know if I'm going to convince you on it as someone, because I think the thing is a lot of Muslims in particular love the tangible goods, properties and gold in particular, when it comes to an investment thing. And it's very hard to convince someone of, I don't know, crypto. I'm not a fan or an advocate of crypto in any way, but that is one of the things against it, right? The more speculative it gets, the more kind of digital it is, the harder it is to convince someone of that. But fintech, for me, it's not really about the digitization of it or the app. It's just a different way of doing business, right? And things are changing. Like, do you use an app to do your banking at the moment in any way, shape, or form?
For sure, yes.
Yeah, right? So if you're doing that, then things are already starting to change a little bit, right? And fintech is such a broad banner, right? So just to say what we're doing at Kestrel, right now we're a budgeting tool. Plug in multiple banks, we'll create that automatic budget.
Does anybody else do that in the marketplace?
There are a few people doing it, but not in the Islamic space at all. So no one is doing it where...
Not IFG?
No, IFG doesn't do an automatic. No, they don't use open banking. They don't have an app. IFG are really, really good in terms of an investment provider. And they also, an information provider. What is halal, what is permissible, what different asset classes. So they're amazing, unbeatable within that space. They haven't launched an app or have gone into the techie space too much at the time of this podcast anyway. So no, they're not doing that at the moment. But we can do an automatic budget for you. We have the algorithms, the tech team, the data science, all of that to do that. So we invested heavily in that for the future products, inshallah. So yeah.
Yeah, I suppose, look, one word of advice I can give maybe is, what changed for me within the last few years is when I took a business coach. And the key thing that my coach helped me with was narrowing my focus and doubling down on what I'm good at and what we're good at, and creating revenue and profit from that. So you've mentioned quite an array of things, and I can sort of almost visualize how that will consume a lot of your day as an entrepreneur. When you start your day, and by the time you finish, and then you're rattling through all these different potential revenue streams. But the one tip I could give and one question I'd ask you is like, what is your core competence that you could double down on, and what is making or what is likely to make revenue and profit, and what could you be known for?
As a company or as an individual?
I suppose a company stems from the inner core of the individuals who found it. Yeah, so it could be both, or it could be the company.
So I mean, it's a really interesting question. We're only as good as our team, and I like to think that the founding team, of which there are 4 executives at the moment, we complement each other quite well, make up for our strengths and weaknesses. I'm a talker. I like talking to people, talking to customers, finding out their real pain points, the problems they're experiencing, and trying to build and come up with a strategy around that. Daing Termizi, who I met on the MBA, Malaysian brother, worked in Islamic banking his whole career. He's great at the operations side of things, right? He's really good at the back end, making sure the people are okay, our third-party suppliers are okay, and making sure that everything is working and keeping the costs effective. Irfan Radzi is our CTO. He's been a CTO for a big e-commerce firm in Malaysia for a long time. We managed to convince him to come on board, and he is kind of, you'd call it a unicorn in tech, in that he can do everything from front end, back end, user experience, and user design, all that kind of thing as well. But I think his real key skill comes in that there's a difference between a developer and a CTO, where a CTO has to manage the team as opposed to getting into the weeds and getting their hands dirty themselves. And then finally, alhamdulillah, we managed to bring my dad on board as a CFO. And he's worked in the city for over 30 years as head of audit and compliance with some really big banks, really good connections with the FCA. He really keeps our costs down to a T, making sure we're not spending extra on anything, even if it was like branded face masks for Kestrel, for example. You've got to get strict approval on that. So as a team, we complement each other quite well. In terms of what we're really good at and our core strength as a company, of all the people in this space, we have an in-house tech team. So we are very flexible and have been able to move really fast. Like I said, when we started Kestrel, just before lockdown happened and we went full time on this, we were all about doing a debit card. We changed that quite quickly because we spoke to customers, we spoke to users who found that their problems were very different from what we thought they were. They were more about saving as much as they can and putting that to work in a halal manner for them. It wasn't really about the debit card. We had to pivot relatively quickly to solve that problem as we understood it, and we came up with this budgeting idea, which is the first step of every personal finance journey, making sure you have more coming in than you have going out, being as efficient as possible before you go on to saving for your short-term goals, investing for long-term goals. So we had to move really quickly, and if we were using a third-party company like a contractor or something like that, we wouldn't have been able to maneuver like that. And we're still able to do that, where we can run multiple projects, where we have a budgeting tool that we maintain. We've got a marketplace coming out soon. We're doing a halal stock screener and savings pots and all that running in these multiple channels. So that's one of our key strengths. But if we had to focus on one, the thing that I'm most excited about and test very well with users, and that inshallah we're bringing out this summer in just a couple of months, it's got to be those savings pots, which we call the eggs, keeping it in the bird theme. So the idea that you can plan out your short-term goals and your long-term goals, whether it's saving for a wedding, a car, putting it down a deposit for a house, or longer term in terms of having kids and saving up for a pension. You can have all those visualized on a timeline, which people are very bad at doing generally when they don't have any kind of backing. 90% of people out there don't really do this with any kind of real thought behind it. Doing that and actually ring fencing money into these savings pots where you can be really disciplined, make sure you're not dipping into those things and spending it, but then linking those savings pots. So you've got £1,000 towards a house deposit, you can link that up with an Islamic bank through us, where we can open up an account where it's very, very difficult for you to do that through the Al Rayans or the other Islamic banks out there right now because of how manual that process is and because the branches don't exist anymore. Whereas they're happy to work with us as their front-end digital banking solution, where before it would take a few weeks to open up an account, you can do that through us in minutes, for example. Right, so that's the thing, the Kestrel eggs and linking that with savings and also the investment side. That is what we're really focused on right now as a strength and as a real revenue generator, not just from the commission that will be provided by those third parties, but also because that's not going to be provided for free. For people who really, really want it, we'll be charging a monthly subscription for that. So that's what we're hoping the recurring revenue, which is one of our key metrics, is really going to be coming in, inshallah. So yeah,
inshallah,
that's the intention.
It'll go well, inshallah.
I don't know if I answered that question at all. I felt like I was going on for ages.
Yeah, I mean, the question was, you're doing a lot.
Yeah.
What are you going to narrow down on? And your answer was, we're doing a lot, but we're going to narrow down.
We're
on
narrowing
this.
down on this one thing. Yeah.
Right. So, the next bit is my favorite bit.
Okay.
Deal making.
Okay.
So, I don't know how much you know about us.
Mm-hmm. I know the bare basics, so please,
okay.
Please go into it.
Okay, good. I'll give you a brief outline of what we're doing, but I'm interested to know. I want to be at the forefront with all of our startups. When I say ours, we're talking about your startup is our startup because you're from the Ummah. We will support you, and we want you to succeed. So what do we do? We're in year 2 of a 10-year roadmap.
Okay.
We've arrived having done 20 years of it already. And we're known as the Properteers Group. The Properteers Group is a wholly owned subsidiary of the Islamic investor.
Okay.
And just like we were talking about a little bit earlier, that the company is a manifestation of its founder or founders.
Mm-hmm.
So likewise, when I went through a period of deep reflection of who am I, what am I about, what do I stand for, and how can I articulate that in the marketplace, my conclusion is that I'm the Islamic investor. And there were people around me at the time who were like, okay, I get it, and I want to be part of this. We want to be the Islamic investor. And there's 2 components to that. There's Islamic and there's the investor.
Yeah.
And so the way we often refer to it is like it's integrity and capability. The 2 must-haves.
Yeah.
If we don't have it, let's not waste our time, sit on the table, right? So the Islamic investor, the 10-year roadmap is, first of all, has 3 strands, and it has a focus on the first strand, on our core experience, i.e. the founding members, the founding equity partners. Our core experience is real estate and making money in real estate, profit. So we want to spend the first 5 to 7 years in real estate and build something big, build something special. We want to be bold, brave, daring, straight, and say that we are going to be the premier Sharia compliant real estate developer in the UK, inshallah. And I'll come to the other two legs in a minute because they integrate with the first one. But what is the Properteers Group about? The Properteers Group is founded on three key principles or three key philosophies: extreme efficiency, agile methodology, and fast fail. And I think if we work back from fast fail, let's work on that. Let's because that one I think summarizes the 3 in 1. So we're not scared to have a go. We're not scared to get it wrong in a safe environment. We're prepared to be brave and bold and give it a shot, having done all of our metrics and all of our homework in a safe, profitable environment. So I'll give you an example. One of our projects, we did acquisition on the 23rd of December last year. We started construction on the 11th of January, and we're due to hand over on the 30th of July in a couple of months. Like for a new build property project, more than one unit, that's unheard of in the UK, end to end. We're talking about pre-acquisition and to investment, pre-construction, construction, sales and handover. We've had to be very brave, very daring, and embrace technology, embrace world-class thinking, world-class talent, tier 1 leadership, innovation in construction management, and think about the exit before we did the entry. And so we efficiency in our sales piece as well, amalgamating all of that together is basically pulling all of our experiences together. So what's appearing at the moment is relationships with local authorities who like us, who trust us. In this building, we have relationship with local authority. In North Lincolnshire, the local authorities want properties from us, and they're willing to lease them and write them off, underwrite them for 5 years, rent guaranteed, which gives us a higher than normal yield. So that's our property piece, and alhamdulillah, it's going well. It's growing day by day. The team's expanding. Investment interest is increasing, and as our range of exit strategies are strengthening, our capability to do deals, deal flow, and execute in the middle is also increasing. So this is where we'd like a plug-in with Kestrl, because alhamdulillah, the return on investment is way above sort of market rates, and we'll talk about that. Yeah. We'll talk about that over time. But the other two legs are education, and I suppose this is part of the education leg here, where it completely integrates with what we're doing, because it's not about me and it's not about us, it's about all of us. Yeah. And it's about growing wealth for our community and growing know-how in creating wealth through real estate in our community. So the education leg has started. It started since last year. We've started what's known as the UK IPIN, UK Islamic Property Investors Network. Okay. So we did one event before lockdown. It was a sort of the first networking event for like-minded property investors, people who wanted to get into property investment in a halal way, sharia-compliant way. Okay. We did the first one. It was sold out. We had a wait list, and we held back. We felt we would diminish the value of it if we went online, if we didn't know how to control that process. Okay. We didn't have the in-house expertise and experience to handle that. But we went for broke like 2 months ago, and we went online, and we 10 times multiplied the capacity, and we sold out again, which shows, like how you're saying, the pain point of the Muslims in our community, the 2 million that you refer to in the literature that I've seen you've put together. Really the number one pain point is, I've got some money, I don't know where to put it in a halal way, really, isn't it? Yeah. And the third leg is where we organically move that IP and inshallah the wealth and the capacity into being a venture capital, stroke private equity, and investing in like real talent and some exciting startups.
So how much of your... Okay, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
How much of your funding comes from the retail market as opposed to an institution?
Look, as you very well know, there's FCA guidelines that we have to adhere to.
Yep.
And so we will always find legal and halal ways of being halal and being Islamic.
Yeah.
It's a good question, but mainly because of the FCA guidelines, we're working, I would say, with high net worth and sophisticated investors.
Yeah.
And we've found creative and legal channels of working with retail.
Yeah.
People who wouldn't be able to invest in sort of large scale real estate ventures otherwise.
Yeah.
And we actually need platforms like yourself.
Yeah.
And Yielders and all those other sort of, they can handle the headache part, the compliance part, and pulling the funds in. Like if we're doing £1 million project, how many times are we going to have to raise £5,000? It just doesn't work.
Exactly.
We will be an administrative nightmare for us.
Yeah.
Whereas you have the infrastructure. So that's where I'm
where
really
it connects
interested
together.
in.
And this is so interesting, right?
Yeah.
Because there's a real weakness amongst Islamic fintechs right now. Which I'm sorry to say, there's a technology issue in which every person we've reached out to right now, they do not have the technology for a full kind of integration at the moment, where the best people genuinely out there, I'm not just saying this, at National Zakat Foundation, because their plugin into our app was actually really, really smooth and fully integrated. There was no kind of friction, right? From someone opening up National Zakat Foundation within the app, it looked like it was within Kestrel, calculating their zakat automatically and then having to donate. Other people, it's pretty much like opening up a web page within the app, right? And we would love to build that for people, to take that on, because our key strength is our tech team. We can do that for people. But it's just a question of, do we want to do that for free? If you see what I mean, because there is a time and materials effort based into that. Sure. It takes away our time to go towards our other projects. And that's what we'd love to do in the medium term. In the short term, we're bringing on these people. We're working with Yielders, with Simply Ethical, with Cordus, with Minted, all of these guys, to bring them onto the app. But I would love to be able to build a true kind of hub where these guys are fully integrated within the app, a dashboard which people can actually see their investments and manage it all within one place, in a true kind of integrated super app for Muslims, right? The Muslim Pro I know Muslim Pro is a bad example with their data stuff, but the kind of super app for Muslims for anything when it comes to their finances, right, is inshallah the long-term vision for Kestrel. And we'd love to be able to partner and help you guys out with that. Yeah.
Okay. So,
are we making a deal on a podcast?
Let's do it, man. Why not? So look, what does the deal look like is what I want to understand. So you're saying you can build our own platform, which is incidentally something that we want.
Yeah.
I don't know if we're ready for it just yet.
Yeah.
Or we plug in with something that works already. We'll pick up your money. We use your money.
Yeah.
We grow the money. We share the profit.
Yeah.
Pure mudaraba.
Yeah.
How does that sound?
Really good, to be honest. Really good. And look, there's a lot of manual people out there. I mean, one of our key advisors, Sultan Chowdhury, who ran Al Rayan Bank, and now he's doing a lot of things in the property space as well, and bridging finance. I don't know if you've heard of Precept Finance, but he works there, and he's also on the board of Offer, which are doing some cool things in the bridging space as well. Look, he's got a lot of ideas on this, and there are these nice little outfits who are coming out to help people, mainly in the bridging finance side. On the construction side, that's why what you're saying is really, really cool, because I think this is genuinely something really, really different and exciting, which can, especially if we can make it work from a compliance perspective, help a lot of people on the ground, the 2 million Muslims in the UK, and inshallah beyond that. Because the closest that we're coming to that right now, and comment in this if I'm getting this wrong, but Yielders are doing a great job at the moment in finding those kind of properties, buying them primarily through high net worths, and then allowing them to be rented out to people, to the retail market, from as low as £100, right? And they've done really well, but the scalability of that, I think, hits a ceiling, right? And I think that's where a lot of people are running into issues. And when I've spoken to people outside the Islamic property space, just property in general, they always constantly voice their frustrations at how difficult it is to scale the Islamic property kind of model from them, because they get to a point where the returns just don't make sense. The risk return doesn't make sense to them because the amount of risk that has to be taken on. So there's few institutionals who are willing to do that. So we can make it work from, like you said, I love that kind of thing, the integrity side and the capability point. Marry those two things together in a way that's scalable. That's the sweet spot. And I think technology and compliance, which is where we can come in, is a really, really key part of that.
This is my beef. All right, this is my beef with the fintechs, right? So we'll get right into the pinpoint of what the issue is. Look, we want to lead by example. So what we say is what we do and what we're going to do, and we inshallah will continue to do. So if we can create incredible value and beyond sort of normal market trend value, why am I going to just keep that for myself and just what am I actually going to do with an excess amount of money when I have a real opportunity to share that and grow that amongst my community? And so where you've got in conventional finance, you got one winner, one loser, and everyone else who's a loser, i.e. a bank, an entrepreneur, and the ordinary public, right? And so let's talk about everyday property development in the UK. You got some guy with a company who's good at finding the deal, doing the deal, making profit. And you got a bank who looks at him and he believes him or he doesn't. If he believes him, he gives him the money, but he says, if you screw up, I'm going to take the whole lot. Yeah? And so there's one winner, there's one loser. That guy, he takes the risks, he's able to deliver, and he keeps the majority of profit for himself, a small share for the bank. Or the bank wait in the wing, they wait for him to screw up, and they take the whole lot.
The risk is entirely one-sided.
And then you got everyone else, mainstream society, who never got a look in. Yeah? So this is my sort of beef. That if and when Islamic Fintech takes off, are we just creating another institution who's going to milk everything out in the middle, and then people who are going to invest through them are not going to become a millionaire within a million years?
What I'd like to think,
creating real wealth.
What I'd like to think is that the Islamic branding of that, it holds us to a different level of accountability. And what I've noticed amongst the people is that as soon as you say that you're an Islamic anything, especially in finance, people are far more skeptical and applies far more scrutiny to anything that you're doing. We noticed that from the get-go. It was not that easy acquiring customers from a marketing perspective, because everyone wants to figure out, and quite rightly so, you want to figure out who these people are. Are they just trying to take advantage of the Muslim name, right, and the cause there? But I'd like to think that because we are holding ourselves to that standard, because we're working with very well-regarded Sharia scholars, we have Mufti Faraz Adam, who's very well known within this space, that we are able to do truly what we're setting out to do, which is to democratize wealth amongst the masses, right? And it's I don't know, what you're saying just reminded me of, the dua of Hazrat Sulaiman alayhi salam. It's just, he said in just roughly in English, I'm probably going to get this wrong, so again, you can edit this. He asked Allah, first of all, for forgiveness, and secondly, to grant him the gift of kingdom beyond which it would be inappropriate for anyone else to have that, which seemed like a bizarre thing to ask for because it's a prophet, and he is asking for something which seems so dunya focused. But the reality was, because like all the prophets were given gifts, his gift was of rulership of everything from the jinn to the elements to the animals to people. He was able to do that without getting corrupted. And his whole thing is that he can use that as a sadaqah jariyah for himself, to get more reward for himself and to help people in general. And just thinking back to your first question, which was asking what are we really good at, and doing that, I think if you find what you're good at, you have a responsibility to share that with people and to help the ummah in general. And I like to think that the Islamic fintechs who survive, hopefully, inshallah, Kestrel will be one of them,
Inshallah.
are the ones who remember that and hold that true and always keep the people first. Because when you lose sight of the customer, then that's it for you as a business, I think. So yeah, a bit of a tangent, but that's our thoughts on it.
Yeah, no, and on that note, I think that's a perfect ending to this podcast, to be honest. Perfect sentiments. And I just want a get-out clause because although, I can come across quite aggressive and emotional because I am emotional about this topic, but under no way do I intend to undermine or devalue the work of some of our organisations.
Definitely.
I just want to make that point clear. We're all in this together.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I thank you for taking time out.
No, thank you for having me. No, thank you for having me.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, it's been a really, really fun conversation. One of the best I've done. So yeah, thank you.
Perfect. We'll stay in touch, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you.